Hey everybody, today I'm going to print the photos that I took a couple weeks ago. A couple weeks ago, I did something really weird and I photographed the screen of my computer. I wanted to convert photos from digital to film. And why would I want to do something dumb like that? Well, it's because I like to print things in the darkroom. And a lot of us who do film photography still have a lot of digital photos from years past. And we still walk around with the same cell phones in our pockets. So there's times when I have a photo that I took that's on my cell phone and I don't have any way of printing it in a darkroom other than to convert it to film first. And the same thing with my, this one here. My new favorite fun little camera, my X-Half. I've got some good photos that I've taken with the X-Half that are digital, but I want to be able to print them in a darkroom. So how do I go about doing that? Up until last year, there was a guy I would go to in Albuquerque, New Mexico, a company called Gamatech, a one-man show, and he would do this service. He used a Polaroid 8000, I think it is the machine he used for this. And unfortunately, it seems that the guy and the machine both became a little long in the tooth at the same time, and he finally hung up his spurs. And that was around December of last year, so I have nowhere to go to get film made from digital photos. That's why I thought, let's just see what happens if I photograph the computer monitor. I have a iMac with a Retina display, and it can display things with really tiny dots. And I should be able to take that big display and get it on a negative in a way where I can then blow it up and make a print like one of these ones you see behind me. Here's the setup. I put my Canon A-1 on a copy stand, centered on and square to the computer screen. Did a lot of measuring. I lined up the edges of the grid you see on the screen with the edges of the viewfinder. I added a cable release. And then I used the thin vertical line in the center of the grid to nail the focus using the split prism in the viewfinder. I then opened the photo I wanted to copy to film in full screen mode. I turned out the lights, of course, and then I took the shot. And here's the film I produced. And you can see, there we go. I shot, this is what I had. You shoot with what you got. This is T-Max 400. I would have preferred to have used T-Max 100, but I've got a bulk roll of T-Max 400, so it was a lot easier for me to do it with this. If this works out, then I'll buy some T-Max 100 and repeat the same thing with photos that I want to turn into film, and it should work. I already digitized this film. It's kind of totally backwards, going from digital to film back to digital. And I showed those earlier, and they turned out pretty darn good. And so it's promising. We have to see what's actually going to happen when I start printing these on Ilford multi-grade paper in the darkroom. Let's get to it. Here we go. These are the photos we're going to work with today. These 5 are from a photo I shot in 2014 of a building with a sign that said Hamilton Uniforms. It was an old building from the 1920s. It's been since torn down. These next 4 shots are of a iPhone photo of my wife by the lake. I shot that a couple weeks ago on my phone. And these ones with the leaf and the Chevy truck are both from the X-Half camera. This is pretty darned amazing that by photographing the monitor of my computer, I could produce real silver, black and white photographs. And they appear every bit as crisp as the originals. This is the book, The Camera, from a series, The Camera, The Negative, and The Print by Ansel Adams. And in my copy, on page 49 in the section under lenses, there's a paragraph at the bottom here. We must remember that the depth of field relates to an acceptable degree of sharpness. Acceptable sharpness is also affected by the degree of enlargement of the negative and the distance from which the final print is viewed. An enlargement that looks well at 5 feet might be definitely unsharp at reading distance. The idea behind this is that you can chase after the sharpness of the photo all day long. But if this photograph is going to be hung on a wall and you're going to look at it from 5 feet away, you don't need to get a magnifying glass out and look at individual grains or pixels.
So it's a new day. I'm wearing the same shirt for continuity, but now I have the rich radio voice that a cold gives me. So I'm going to take advantage of my resonant voice as I give you the results. I mounted and matted each of these photos, and the results were stunning. Here we go. This is the Hamilton uniforms shot. This one I'm pretty happy with. It's a little bit washed out here, it looks. I'm not sure. I think I can see detail there, but considering the kind of shot this is, I'm very pleased with all the shadows and the contrast, everything else. This is a good shot. I'm happy with it. And here's the photo of my wife by the lake. This is from the iPhone. And it seems like this would be the dumbest way to get your iPhone shot printed, but it works great. Every detail of this photo is in there. All the little flyaway hairs that she has, you can see them. If you look with a magnifying glass, you can see the detail. Why would you ever want to do a thing like that? A photo like this is sharp enough when it looks sharp when you're viewing it at the distance that you normally would view it at, in the light you normally want to view it at. Here's the third photo of the group. This one is the leaf of one of my wife's plants. There we go. And this one, I think it's more contrasty here. In fact, I did notice that all of them had more contrast than normal. When I did my print, I had to dial back the contrast using the variable contrast filter on my enlarger. I had to dial it from a normal 2 to a 1.5 in order to get the photos I was looking for. So there's the leaf. This came from the X-half up here, and it had built-in grain. So any grain you see here is from the X-half. It's not from this process. And finally, we have the Chevy pickup truck. Again, this is from the X-half. And we had the same thing. It has more contrast than I expected. So this process produces more contrast. And it's pretty easy as a photographer in the darkroom to dial back that contrast. Just to give you an idea of what these things look like compared to other prints. First is, I'm just going to compare to a print that I made last year from a scan using the Polaroid 8000. This was from the guy at Gammatech, and that's this rope right here. And every detail of that rope that was in focus in the digital shot is in focus here. You can see all the little strands of rope in there. So the Polaroid 8000 is all business. And if you can find somebody with one, that's great. And that's what I'm hoping to find. But it was $5 a shot, and the guy's no longer in business. So this was fun. However, for my photos, I'm going to continue doing what I did here. And I'm going to make some changes to my process, but I'll continue doing it here. Another thing I want to show you is, let me see if I can find, here we go. This is a photo from the Pentax 17 over here, the half frame Pentax 17. And if you look, you can see grain in this shot. And I'm going to say that the grain in this Pentax 17 shot is comparable to the grain that you see in the Fuji X-Half. So they have done a pretty good job of making the X-Half photo look pretty much like a proper half-frame photo. So I'm not sad about that. What did I learn? Well, I found a few things out that were interesting. Number one, this actually works. It was great. I didn't think it would work. I thought this would be a joke. Just people would laugh at it. Look at this bozo. What? No, it worked great. Second thing I learned was once I dialed in my exposure settings, they worked for all of the photos. All 4 of those photos were shot at 1/2 second f/16 on 400 speed film. That makes sense because what we were taking a photo of was a computer screen with the brightest white and the blackest black that the screen can produce, just miles away from the range of brightness and darkness that you would get on a sunny day. By taking photos of the screen, the digital photography part of the process has already kind of squished things down. So I know that I can use that very same setting, the f/16, 1/2 second, and 400 speed film, and I will get a good shot. I want to tweak that a little bit though, because I don't want to use 400 speed film. I want tighter grain, and I need to reduce the exposure a little bit. These were overexposed. I was doing my bracketing from f5.6 up to f/16, and it turns out that f/16 was the only really good usable setting. So I really needed to go f22 or something like that. But when you start getting into that range, now you've got the sharpness of your lens is suffering. So I'm going to adjust things so that I can shoot with f8. So maybe I'll end up shooting maybe 50 speed film or something like that. And other thing that I learned doing this was printing in the darkroom. I could use the exact same settings for all of them. Again, it's the same thing. The exposure for each frame is so tight that I ended up using the same settings. I set my enlarger to f5.6, and I used this shockingly long, I think it was a 100-second exposure on all of them. So, and that kind of tells you how overexposed each of the frames was. When you overexpose, the film becomes very dark, and you need to increase the time that you have the enlarger light on in order to get any detail to show up in your photo. By decreasing the exposure, now I'll be able to do prints in something a lot more reasonable, like maybe 40 seconds or maybe 30 seconds. 100 seconds was a little bit over the top, but it was really cool. The stability of the process, both for taking the photo and for doing the print. And that's all I've got for you today. This experiment blew me away, made me really happy. And this is how I'm going to do prints of digital photos like this iPhone photo of my wife when I can't do them in any other way. This sure beats trying to print them on a cantankerous inkjet printer or sending them off to be printed by a service. When I do this, they look great. And that's good enough for me. So thank you for watching. Now go out and shoot a roll.